Hi there, and thank you for joining us on the Overcomers Overcoming podcast. We feature those who are in the process of overcoming or have overcome any type of life encounter, life obstacle that at the time seemed to be almost insurmountable. With this podcast, we have three objectives in mind. Our first objective is we want you to know with a confident resolve you are not alone. We want to work with you. We want you to know there are others who are working with you, who want to help you through whatever you are encountering, and together we will get through whatever you're experiencing.
Our second objective is there are multiple options for any life encounter you are facing. We want to help you develop a resolve that there are various options and solutions to any life dilemma.
Our third objective is to help you with critical thinking skills. If you're encountering something that was possibly a decision you made sometime in the past, and if you had the opportunity for a life redo, you would make a different decision. We want to help you with those critical thinking skills that can help you make an informed decision and not encounter what you're going through at the moment. We are the Cooper Culture, a veteran-owned business. We work with business personnel and families to develop and sustain connected relationship cultures within their families and organizations. That type organization is one where people feel wanted, appreciated, and genuinely a part of that organization. I'm with my wife and business partner, Marty, who has helped me facilitate this podcast. Today we feature Taimi Lawlor, who discusses her travails with anxiety and a lot of research she did into this. She discovered for herself that part of the reason for her anxiety was an autoimmune deficiency. And as she looked into that further, she discovered her eating habits, the environment in which she was raised. Several factors contributed to her anxiety. Through several years of research, she learned how to cope with anxiety as it related very specifically to her, and she has now developed a program to where she helps others overcome their anxiety through what she's calling a stretch beyond yoga. Marty, what are some takeaways we can learn from Taimi?
Ron, I hope I'm right about this, but she talked about the gut and the brain, the connection of those two parts of your body, and then talking about what you eat, as you said, but also the gut and the brain and what she ate and how that affected her autoimmune disease.
We know research shows that what we eat can have a direct impact on our disposition and anxiety. It's a great opportunity to learn about ourselves. Let's listen and learn together. Taimi, it is great to have you with us. Our listeners are going to be very interested in learning a little bit of your past, how you have overcome what you did in experiencing anxiety, but more importantly, how you have overcome that type of life, and then what you're doing to help others having experienced anxieties, because I know there are a lot of listeners who are experiencing anxieties. They're interested in learning how to overcome this. Taimi, great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me on today. I appreciate it.
Taimi, can you tell our listeners just kind of a brief overview, what you have experienced in the past? Just very briefly describe anxiety to whatever degree you want. And more importantly, it's how did you overcome and how can we help others overcome the anxiety?
Definitely, I always joke I'm was the poster child for anxiety and depression. If you looked up the definition, there was my face. So I definitely have been to some dark places. I've experienced panic attacks, all the things that someone with anxiety and depression may go through. I know everybody's journey is a little different in what they experience, but I made a conscious decision to not accept the conventional way of just taking medicine and trying to push through life. I decided to look at my mind and my body to get to the root of what was really driving the feelings I was feeling.
Taimi, I don't know if it's a fair question, but I'm going to try asking you, in hindsight, as you kind of assessed yourself, the anxieties, would you say it was more of a mental type thing? Was it biological? I'm just curious what the cause was, if you can even identify that.
Yeah. I struggled with an autoimmune disease that went undiagnosed for quite some time. And so by the time I got properly diagnosed, I believe that it was almost like, I want to say, too late, in the sense that, the physiology had been impacted for such a long time. So the symptoms were strong. There's some beliefs there, though, that did my thinking need to change about how I saw the world too? Yes, absolutely. But the physical symptoms, the gut symptoms, the bowel symptoms were so strong and uncomfortable that it really had taken over my entire physiology. So I'd say it was I was equally impacted. How about that?
All right. I'm curious, how old were you, or more importantly, how many years did you experience this anxiety to where you said, I've got to get this under control? And I'm not sure I'm using the words you used.
I would say, did I have a propensity, epigenetically, genetically, to be an anxious person? Yes, right. That plays, your genetics, epigenetics play a role, but then your environment plays a bigger role. So it wasn't until probably graduate school and I was really physically impacted. I wasn't going to the bathroom for like weeks at a time. Very headaches, stomach aches, panic attacks. So around, I'd say, my early to mid 20s, I realized this is no way to live. This isn't fun.
You mentioned the word environment with no intention to blame anyone or anything. Was it in part the people you were with, what you were maybe eating, those kind of things, all of that contributed to your anxiety?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Lifestyle, stressors, certain people I was exposed to, what their previous history was. Familial trauma plays a role. You can't discount that. The people that instill the beliefs into you, they're doing the best that they can with what they have, right? So, but if you don't know that there's better out there, you'll just keep repeating the same pattern. So some of that was condition, some of it was temperament too. I initially, I'm a big feeler. I had I'm an extrovert who wanted to please. So, there's the self-confidence piece, but then there's also the piece you were talking about. With an autoimmune disease, right off the bat, you can't be eating gluten or dairy. And I was eating that. Nobody knew back then, what they know now about autoimmune. So there was also what physically I was putting into my body, and how I was exercising was too much for my nervous system or my physiology to process.
So I'm processing what you're saying. You went through an assessment, the autoimmune, the things you were eating, the people you were with, and it's a lot of all the above. I'm supposing, Taimi, made a decision. I have to change. I have to change what I'm eating, maybe change my friends, maybe even move to where I'm living in a different environment and so forth. Am I describing some of the process you went through to overcome that anxiety?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Do you still deal with anxiety, or would you say, totally have overcome? You're no longer living what used to be?
Absolutely. I mean, of course, there is some level of stress that we all experience. Some levels of anxiety, stress are healthy, and we need some in our life. But to the degree that I once lived, in terms of, panic attacks, sleepless nights, bowel issues, depressive moments, none of that. That person is no longer.
For the listener who may be saying right now, I am going through some of the things you're describing, Taimi, but I don't know where to get started. I wish I weren't, but I just need help. Where do I get started? How would you help that person?
There's so many different avenues you can take. It depends, right, what you want to address. For me, I did all the things. I tried all the things until I found it was trial and error, until I found what worked, what my body liked, what I resonated with. So for some people, it may be medication and talk therapy, having a therapist that they feel comfortable with, and that might be it. I wanted to go past that. In my mind, I didn't want to be somebody who needed a medication. I wanted to get to the root. So when you're going to the root, you're usually stepping out of the conventional model and you're looking at more integrative practitioners to help you find those causes of why the symptoms are happening.
Did you ultimately have a holistic approach to overcome the past? And by holistic, I mean non-medicinal. You were able to assess, deal with, but not cure or overcome through medication?
Yes. Everything I did. I mean, and there was a point where I tried medication, absolutely, because that's what I was being told to do. But there was something inside of me, and I'm speaking just from my point of view, right? This isn't going to resonate with everybody, even though every physical body is different. I wanted, like I said, to get to the root. What was causing it? What was underneath it? So with an autoimmune issue, it threw off, the endocrine system was impacted. The sex hormones were impacted. The GI system was impacted. So I was looking at all of those systems, and then I realized, well, none of them can function well if my nervous system, I need to step out of fight or flight. And that helped further push the healing along.
Was it, in hindsight, the core problem, your autoimmune, or was it the other, I used the term peripheral things that ultimately cured your autoimmune?
Well, it's tricky because the nervous system works intimately with the lymphatic system, and the endocrine system works intimately with the reproductive system. We know that we are not separated systems, even though we treat medicine, conventional medicine looks like that. We are one connected body. All the systems are communicating with each other all the way down to the cellular level. So again, I wouldn't say, because I was going after the root of it, I worked on all aspects, mind, body, spirit, to get to a place of healing for me.
For the person who's experiencing anxiety, is that ultimately very personalized? Not everybody is the same, that whatever's causing anxiety for me may be different for you, Marty, and so forth, that it's all very individualized?
Yeah. I mean, because I truly believe in personalized medicine to begin with, personalized health. So yes, because your trauma could be different from my trauma. What's driving your imbalances could be different from my imbalances. Of course, some of the symptoms and experiences may look similar, but the root for everyone is going to be different, and how the body reacts is going to be different.
So do you have a business where you work with other people? It sounds as if you have learned, you've spent maybe many years researching you, and the outgrowth of that, the benefit to others may be you've learned about yourself, therefore you've learned about anxiety in general terms. Do you have a business where you can help other people through their anxious moments?
Absolutely, I do. Initially, so my initial training is in speech and language pathology, and I would go do all of my extra learnings on anxiety, because I'd see kids who are having very same, again, similar symptoms. And then when I learned about the autoimmune and leaky gut and foods and how that can affect our nervous system, I started going down into these, I guess, obsession holes, and I would take courses and classes, and I would be in the library for hours reading because I was fascinated. I always had been fascinated by nutrition and the human body. And so it really resonated with me. So yes, I then took all of that knowledge after decades of training and studying, and I created a Stretch Beyond Yoga. And the reason it's called a Stretch Beyond Yoga is because initially, when I was in the midst of my healing, I wouldn't say initially, in the midst of the healing, I started taking yoga. And when I stepped on the yoga mat, it forced me to really get into my body. Yes, I'd done acupuncture and massage, but I was moving and breathing. And that was really a profound shift for me, because by the end of that class, you were forced to stay still, but you were so tired that you wanted to stay still. And in those moments, my body began to really heal. So yoga became an obsession. And then as I built the other skills in around functional integrative testing, the business just had more veins working off of it. So when clients come to work with me, I do a combination of nervous system support, physiological testing, and then also I work on their mindset from the different tools that I had learned from the different mentors that had taught me along the way.
I want to ask you a very elementary question. Is it possible some people are suffering from or are subject to some sort of anxiety, but they've just lived with what they've got for so long they don't know it as anxiety? They maybe would just tell you, I'm just kind of stressed out. I'm not sleeping well, eating well, and so forth. And you may know it based on your experience as anxiety, but the person expressing that may not know it as anxiety. I'm not even sure I'm expressing very well what my question is, but I'm just curious, is it possible a person may be experiencing anxiety and they don't even know it to be that?
Well, yes. Yes, in two ways. Think about the world we live in now. It's go, 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 right? So there's no time to slow down. That right there is going to create tension and stress within the body. I myself was a high functioning, anxious person. From afar, you probably wouldn't know how difficult it was. If you really knew me, you knew how much I struggled if, I let you in to know that information. So for those people who live in a high stressed, environment, they might just be accepting being stuck, in that level of fight or flight. But then you also look at how many of us are so unaware and disconnected from our bodies and are just living in different states of discomfort and are accepting that. And like I said before, some people will be okay at that level. Other people, like me, want to dig deeper, and they know they can feel better. They just don't know how, and they need somebody to guide them in the direction that you can feel better. There are other ways. You don't have to suffer, in silence, really.
I want to ask a question, and I hope it doesn't sound like I haven't been listening, but I'm trying to decide or know, is it a disease that causes the anxiety, or is because of a personality that causes anxiety?
Everybody, right? There's different theories. And I'm not a doctor, and I'm sure a psychiatrist could speak from their, clinical background. When I think about it from a personal standpoint, and when I went through and what I see with the people I work with, it's usually a little of both. The physiology is impacted all the way to the cellular level. So then you have leaky gut, you're affected by heavy metals in the body, there are hormonal imbalances. All of those things we know from a physiological level can cause anxiety. And I should say, with that is chances are somewhere in your life you've had some sort of trauma. And trauma affects everybody differently, right? And the body remembers the trauma. It could be as simple as a car accident, or it could be more significant. And depending on your temperament and your personality, you're going to process that trauma differently, and it's going to impact you differently, but it's still going to live in your body. And if you don't move it up and out, it's going to rear its ugly head some way. And if your physiology is impacted on top of it, well, now you have a double whammy, right? So that's a loaded question. And I think it depends. No, but it's not a bad question. It depends, I think, who you're speaking to and what their personal experience is or what their training is. But I'll say from my standpoint, that's how I view it. It's a combination of multiple factors.
How can our listeners contact you, Taimi? They are uncertain about themselves, but they're listening to you and saying it's worth a shot to Taimi. I got something wrong. I don't know what it is, but can you work with me? How would a listener contact you?
Sure, you can find my website, A Stretch Beyond Yoga, and there's a contact page right on there. I'm on Instagram as A Stretch Beyond Yoga, TikTok as A Stretch Beyond Yoga, and Facebook as Taimi Lawlor. So there's multiple ways to find me.
Can a person work with you virtually, or do you need to work in person with a person to help them overcome?
No, I do a hybrid model. So I work in person and over Zoom. So either way works.
Nominally, I want to ask you, how much time can a person expect to spend in training to feel more comfortable, overcome, or something? And I want to try to dispel the image for the person who may think that 1 or 2 sessions and we may be done with this. I'm just guessing, Taimi, it could take many months, maybe even years to condition yourself. And I'm not sure that's a term you would use. That's how I'm processing it, to overcome anxiety.
I think that's a tricky question because I think it depends where you're at in your own journey, right? It's never usually just one practitioner, one doctor, one healer, one therapist. It's usually multiple people along the way that are going to help you shift. So it really depends on where you are in your journey, your level of awareness, what you want for your own healing, if that's what you're looking for. So yeah, could it take a few sessions? You get some information from the testing, you clean up some things, and you might be well on your way. Most of my clients, they stay with me anywhere from 12 to 24 sessions because they really want to go deep. They want to look at all the testing they want to learn the yoga. They want to work on their nervous system through tapping. They want to talk about their beliefs, and it's just a safe space when we work together to share what they're going through because they know that I've been there and I'm proof that you can get to the other side of it if you're invested, if that's important to you to do.
I think what I'm hearing you say, you can help a person with topics A, B, and C. Another person may need to work topics D, E, and F with you. Being elementary, am I describing what a person might need to do to get through what they're experiencing?
Yes.
What I'm trying to do is condition our listeners to the fact that Taimi can help with initial diagnosis and to determine what the root cause is, what causes are. We identify them. You can help that person, and Taimi can work on these aspects. Another person works on another in a very top-level, elementary way. The start of this is?
Yes. So let's say you're a woman who just started experiencing anxiety in their late to mid 40s. They're not sure why. They've never really had anxiety before, but all of a sudden it's hit and they're having sleepless nights. I hear that and I say, okay, it sounds like it's a hormonal issue. I'm going to, you could talk to your doctor about these blood serums. I have a dried urine test that we can look at that would really pinpoint hormonally if things are not doing well. Another person might come to me and say, I've experienced anxiety all my life. I know that I should be eating better. I know I should be exercising. I've tried it. I've never stuck with it. I say, okay, let me guide you through that. And let's do some testing, maybe around hair tissue mineral testing to show you what nutrients might be off, because that can cause issues with anxiety. And you have trouble trying to relax. Let me introduce you this form of yoga. Let's see if your body responds to that and you find any peace after learning the skill. So it's really delivering tools to the person too, that they eventually will take and use on their own for their lifetime.
And also, is it possible that we know that we parents want to try to limit the sugar intake of our kids so they don't go hyper and that kind of thing. But is that something that can cause anxiety? That hey, I just eat the way I eat because it tastes good, but that right there could be a source of some of my anxiety.
Absolutely. There's so many foods, unfortunately, now in our culture that are processed and are inflammatory. And many of us are walking around, unfortunately, with, the obesity epidemic is high, autoimmune is on a rise. So inflammation can be driven by inflammatory foods. Every body responds to certain foods differently. So I do use food testing, food sensitivity testing, stool testing. But sometimes it's just as simple as, hey, let's maybe try to cut out some dairy, gluten, and sugar this week and see how you feel, or try to cut this out for a week and move in this direction instead. Let's bring in some of these foods. Do you notice a difference? It can be as simple as that.
And I think you were saying early on, you did a bit of trial and error with your nutrition, that you'll stop eating one or two things, see what the result is, and then experiment that way. Did I hear you correctly?
So mine was a little bit more, I just ripped the Band-Aid, because by the time I started to realize something was really physiologically wrong, I had been to a GI doctor. I think I hadn't had a bowel movement in 3 weeks. And I was 27, and she said, here's some Marilax. You should take this. And I thought, I'm not 97, I'm 27. Why aren't we looking at why I can't go to the bathroom? And somewhere along the way, a book or something someone had suggested food sensitivities, food allergies. I went to the library. I think I read for like 3 days in a row. I found a doctor who was considered unconventional. She tested me, and I will never forget when the foods came back. I was eating eggs every day. I thought that was, really good for your body. Well, it wasn't good for my body. I was eating eggs every day. No wonder I couldn't go to the bathroom. So I learned what foods needed to be taken out. I learned how to heal my gut. My gut was leaking. All these foods were penetrating through. And once I started to reinoculate with the right foods and supplementation, lo and behold, my anxiety got better. Well, why is that? Because of the gut-brain connection. So yes, there are foods, unfortunately, that you have to break up with if you want to feel better.
What you just said, the gut-brain connection, I have heard that before. Marty and I are trying to study that as well. But I think what you're saying, Taimi, is so incredibly important. What we eat can and frequently does affect the brain, the mind, the mindset, what we may think, and how we respond on any given moment. I don't want to suppose that what I just said is accurate, but would you reword it in any different way?
The gut has been called the second brain. Many of your neurotransmitters are made in the gut. If you are eating inflammatory foods that the body can't process, they're going to break through the intestinal wall, and they are going to flow out into the bloodstream. We want everything to stay in its lane. We do not need food seeping out into the bloodstream. So when you are experiencing conditions like diarrhea, constipation, bloating, those are indications that there is gut dysfunction, and ultimately that is going to affect how you think and act.
Wow. That is very timely information, Taimi. I want to ask you one more time, for the listeners who want to contact you and learn more, tell us again, how can they contact you?
You can find me on my website, A Stretch Beyond Yoga, or if you are a social media fan, Instagram, you can look up A Stretch Beyond Yoga, TikTok, A Stretch Beyond Yoga, and on Facebook, it's Taimi Lawlor. All those places you'll find me.
Wow, that is very timely information. And Taimi, thank you for your research. Thank you for reaching out to others to let others know you don't have to continue the way you have been. There is a cure for this. It just takes some research to determine a root cause, and there is a better life to follow. That's how I'm processing exactly what you're saying.
Sounds good. You said it well.
Taimi, this has been really good because you like food and you don't realize what the foods that aren't good for you. So a great lesson and a great podcast on all of this.
Thank you.
Well, on behalf of our listeners, thank you, Taimi. And we hope that anyone experiencing anxiety, any form of just life is not right, will contact you, and let's make things right. There is a better way to go about life.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We appreciate having the opportunity to share our and our guests' life's experiences with you.
The Cooper culture advances organizations to achieve and sustain high retention rates, connected communication, and trust through personality insights and principled leadership. You can contact us at our website, thecooperculture.com, and you can contact us directly at ron@thecooperculture.com or Marty, Marty, at thecooperculture.com. We work with you to help assess aspects of your culture to advance the environment and people to their best performance. We do that through our staff of certified personal performance coaches, leadership trainers, keynote speakers, and DISC personality behavior experts. You can book a speaking engagement directly through our website by contacting us at ron@thecooperculture.com. We look forward to sharing our life experiences with you, some of which are profound, some of which are pretty funny. Some of those life experiences are ones we'll never do that again because we've been through stuff. We truly look forward to working with you, speaking with you, helping advance you in any way that we can.